Yeah.
You're all welcome to this session, a session on engendering the new urban agenda. We apologize, we are late. The turn-up hasn't been as we expected, but we are hoping that we'll have more people come in. But nonetheless, we'll start the session. We're going to have some changes. It's going to be really participatory process. We're missing one presenter. We don't know if she's lost, but we're hoping that she can join us with time. I'm Frances Birungi Odong. I'm from Uganda. I work with an organization called UCOBAC, which is Uganda Community-Based Association for Women and Children's Welfare. The session today is about engendering the new urban agenda. And the session has been convened by Huairu Commission. Huairu Commission is a global coalition of partners, grassroots organizations, and organizations that support grassroots women's work at different levels, at local level, at national level, and at international level. So Huairu Commission's mission is to empower grassroots women to strengthen their community development practices and to transform public policies at national, local, regional, and international levels. So Huairu Commission works with organizations, with grassroots organizations, strengthening them to develop their practices at local level, but also supporting them to transform and to transform public policies at their levels, at different levels, at national level, but also at international level. So today in this session, we will be talking about how we want to have governance in cities that can lead to gender empowerment and women's empowerment, gender equality and women's empowerment. Also, the session is tagged to two major sustainable development goals. Goal number 5, which is on gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. And goal number 11, which is on endeavoring to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So basically in this session, we'll be discussing on how we can have cities in Africa that are governed in such a way that there is gender equality and women's empowerment, but also how cities can be governed in such a way that we can have more inclusive, safer, resilient, and sustainable cities and urban development. So today we have a speaker. We were supposed to have 2 speakers, but we have 1 speaker with us. I will introduce who she is, and then if the second speaker joins us, we'll also introduce who she is. We also have a rapporteur that has joined us. I will also introduce who she is. So Cookie Edwards is our speaker today. Cookie Edwards is a founding director of KZN. She will tell us more about it, Network on Violence Against Women. Cookie has worked in the field of women's rights for more than 20 years. Her expertise includes domestic violence, sexual and reproductive health issues, linkages between HIV and gender violence, and environmental design for women's safety in communities. Ms. Edwards has been involved in spearheading and implementing numerous projects on raising awareness about women's rights, which include capacity building, lobbying, and advocacy. Ms. Edwards has also presented a number of papers at national and international conferences on related issues. She has also been granted a number of national and international awards for honoring her achievement in this field. So we shall be hearing from Cookie about her work and how this has led to gender equality and empowering women in her community. On my extreme left, we have a rapporteur for this session. She is called Helen. I can't pronounce the second name, but it's okay. She will introduce herself further. Helen is the portfolio head and also a member of the Mayor Executive Committee She's also in charge of the health and public safety in Buffalo City Metropolitan Municipality. So I'll give her an opportunity to say more about herself when she gives us the final policy recommendations. So we'll start off with our first presenter, Ms. Cookie. Welcome. Okay.
I also want to look.
Good morning, everybody. I'll have to stand here so that I don't face my back to you as I'm doing the presentation. Could I ask the people on this side to move over so that we're not spread across the room and we have a full group here in the middle? Thank you. Oh, okay. I understand. Okay, no problem. Thanks. Thank you very much. I'm the Executive Director and founder of the KZN Network on Violence Against Women. We are based in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban, in South Africa. And as Francis introduced me, that we do a lot of work around women's human rights. The network has a vision to have a society where human rights are respected and upheld in communities, in society. A belief that a community that is safe for women is safe for all. The mission is to advocate towards the prevention of all forms of gender-based violence, violence against women, and HIV. Oh, I pressed the wrong thing here. Sorry, I did it. On the first slide. Press it again. Oh, okay. Thank you. We were established in 1996, and we network from local to international level. We're a well-established organization. We have a long history of implementing programs and campaigns on sexual and gender-based violence, violence against women, HIV, and we're very strong in community mobilization. We're successful in building the capacity of key stakeholders, community members, and other partners like your local government departments that we work with. We are reliable and accountable. We deliver authentic interventions that have been proven to work and be scaled up to suit any environment. We have good systems in place and strong relationships with partners like your community members right up to government. But besides all the work we do, I thought we'll just focus on the prevention in action work that we did, the social mobilization model, to share this with you. Because a lot of organizations focus on treatment, care, and support after the incidences of violence. This model focused on prevention. It was a pilot project that was implemented, looking at strategies of preventing violence in homes, in public spaces, before they occur. We went into partnership with an organization called PCI, Project Concern International, and implemented the social mobilization program. The goal was to contribute to the reduction of HIV transmission in South Africa by changing social norms that are related to violence against women through large-scale social mobilization. The purpose was to reduce the prevalence of physical and sexual violence against women who are most vulnerable to HIV infections in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. KZN also has a very high rate of HIV infections. So the social mobilization model was to look at a new approach, a fresh approach on primary prevention to address the roots and the causes of violence against women, targeting men and women, not only women, by changing mindsets, beliefs, and behaviors. The social mobilization also used amplified communications as more as in from the community up. So it's like your bottoms up. There was an analysis process using the network expertise. We did a literature review, we did qualitative research. That's how the project started. It was a very participatory process from urban to rural areas. The key stakeholders that were involved in the process were local government departments, service providers, local leaders, and community members who confirmed and prioritized the social norms and the relevant drivers that keeps violence against women alive in communities. On that note, most of you come from communities, local government departments, different organizations. All the work that you have done or know of that has been done to eradicate violence against women over the years, why are we still sitting with this problem? That's what we should be asking ourselves. So much of funding from international donors to our own governments, the research that has been done, the advocacy that has been done, your legislation that's put into place, we should be asking ourselves, why are we still sitting with the problem? What is it that's keeping violence against women alive in our communities? With all the work that has been done. Even now, as we celebrate our 16 days of activism on no violence against women, highlighting the issues of violence against women, gender-based violence, but that's the 16 days. And we're sitting with this problem 365 days a year, 24/7. What is keeping this thing alive in our communities and in our homes? And that was basically part of the research. And from the findings, this is what we found. A lot of people in communities, specifically women, felt that it was okay to be beaten by your partner because they accept it as a sign of love. Women accept abuse as a sign of love. A man should have sex whenever he wants it. A woman who is seen or heard to be beaten by an intimate partner must have done something to deserve it. Friends and family members don't do anything about a man who's known to be violent towards his intimate partner. Women entice men, and that is why they are raped. These are the things that came out from the focus groups from urban to rural areas. The community dialogues that we had. So we asked ourselves, how best can we change these people's mindsets? How best can we flip over this kind of thinking? So what we did is, we went on a bus campaign. We took this bus and we branded it on the side. If you can see right there on the top, it says, what is keeping violence against women alive in your community? We went to all different communities and we had community dialogues with members in the community from urban to rural areas. And we had people write on the bus, what do they think keeps violence against women alive? And all that people wrote throughout KZN, when we went with this bus, we compiled that into a report. So the dialogues that we had in the different communities was to expose those harmful social norms and present and instill positive ones. So if I go back, these are your negative ones. The social norms that people accept in communities. To take it to where physical violence in a relationship is not a sign of love. A man does not have a right to have sex whenever he wants it. A woman does not have to stay in a relationship if a partner beats her, because violence in a relationship is not acceptable. Friends and family should take action when a woman is beaten. We cannot remain silent anymore. And there's no excuse for rape. So these are the social norms, the positive social norms that we were trying to instill in the community dialogues. One of the findings was the baseline research that we did revealed that people know that these things are wrong. Yet they did not know what action can be taken to intervene on violence against women. Like you can see there, people are saying, I know it's wrong, but I don't know what to do about it. We have the report, Threads of Violence Against Women in South African Communities. I can always email it to people if they want it. to see what came out of those, the research. So what we said was, let's increase the number of men and women to advocate or act to stop and prevent violence against women. So what we did, we had this massive billboard campaign in the middle of the city to bring violence against women back into people's faces again, because it's like a forgotten issue. I mean, look at this room. It's empty, and yet we're talking about women's issues. It's sad. Women's issues are always at the bottom of the agenda or a separate issue. So this is what we did with the billboard campaign. We put it in the center of the city, in your face, so that we bring back violence against women into people's faces again, so that it's not a forgotten issue, and it's not to be accepted as normal. So we had this massive billboard campaign, and every second day, if you can see, the first face was clean, the second day there was a blue eye, and every second day we changed it. That was during the 16 days of activism. But what we had was the number that people could SMS the word stop. And we wanted to see how many people would take notice of this. And we had such a good reaction on this here. We reached, I think, over 500,000 people through this billboard campaign. So we didn't only do it with the billboard, we put it in the media, it was on radio stations and everything, speaking about this issue. So taking the positive social norms, raising awareness and doing activities around it, this happened in 2009. It set the stage for preventative action and community mobilization to take place from 2010, the following year, and beyond. We're still doing the work. I just want to go back. From this billboard campaign, from the bus campaign, from the research, from the focus groups we did, we said, okay, what is there that we could do where people can feel like they can own it? It's not about us parachuting programs into communities, but what is there that people can do, the communities can do to own this thing? So we went around the province again. There was a lot of foundational work that was done. We went around the province again, we did a lot of research again, focus groups, and through all that, the media focus groups, we came up, the people came up with it. We wanted a logo that would speak to the people. We wanted a logo that people could identify with. So the focus groups were coming up with different things like flowers, houses, this, but most of the people were coming up with signs of hands. So what we did is we took through the media company that we were working with and took everything that came out from the focus groups. And this is the logo that came out from all those focus groups around the province. And we went into prevention in action. Prevention in action means working together to prevent violence against women, which is owned not by the network, not by the funders, but by the communities themselves. Anyone can own this model. So what do the hands mean when you look at it? What does it mean? It means Rainbow Nation. It means stop. It means, you can do it, you can interpret it in so many ways. Stop, yeah, stop. Yeah, whatever, yeah, we united, all those kind of things. This came out from communities, which anyone in this room can use in your municipality, in your country, wherever you're from. You could use this model. So from the Prevention in Action logo that came out, we launched it under the social mobilization program, which was geared towards primary prevention. If you remember what I said in the beginning, everyone focuses on treatment, care, and support. It's important, but what are we doing to take action to prevent the incident from even occurring? So that's what the Prevention in Action movement is about. The aims of the movement was to create communities to take action to prevent incidences of violence abuse and violence and have zero tolerance against women. Encourage families to support members who are victims of violence. And give a clear message to perpetrators that their actions are not justified and will not be tolerated in the public and private spaces. And from that, we seeded that movement. We had 7 sector partners, which was Department of Justice, so we had government departments also involved in this. We had the South African Police Services, we had other local municipalities, and we had in the NGO sector. We signed MOUs with them, and they gave us the people who they felt would run with this movement in communities that they worked with. There were people also from the government departments who were trained to take this prevention in action movement forward. So we had action media folk workshops, we built their capacity, we gave them the toolkits, well, the MOUs were signed with the partnerships, with the partners, and the different interventions. But if you look at this, how do you do this now? The red lights. Hello, how do you do this red light now? Press the middle N. I can't see, can you all see the red light here? It's coming on, yeah, but I can't see. Where is it? Oh, unless I'm moving, there is it there. Okay, got it now. Sorry. Okay, if you see the light there, from the 7 sector partners, we selected and trained only 120 people. And those 120 people were to reach 6,000 group participants in a just minimum 15 people, maximum 20 people. Because you cannot change mindsets in this room. But through small group interventions, structured information sessions, those 120 people reached out to the 100 people per participant that was trained. That intervention won. The 6,000 people were reached, as you can see in the middle block. I can't get this thing sorted out, sorry. Okay, the middle block. Leave the red light. It's not working. The 6,000. But what we did with that 6,000, we told those 6,000, you reach out to 5 or 10 people. Who were those people? Your family, your friends, your neighbors. You don't have to go and have catering costs and looking for a venue of a hall and all those kind of things. It's about just your neighbors, your family, starting to change mindsets, behaviors from there. So, the last block will show you that 6,000 people who graduated from these groups here will reach 30 or 60,000 people by just enlisting 5 or 10 people. That was the ripple effect that we had on this model. That is how it was so simple. 120 people, 100 people each, for each that they had to target in groups of 15 to 20. Having 5 sessions with each group, they reached out and we reached between 30 and 60,000 people. So it had that kind of ripple effect. So the broad concept was that the more actions in sufficient numbers at community level will lead to a tipping point where violence against women is consistently addressed when it occurs, and where prevalence of violence against women declines over time as primary prevention spills into the community and becomes normal to take action to prevent these incidences. So we used social media, we used all different kinds of social media. One of them was the Facebook. We had a prevention, it's still on, you can always go in and have a look at it. It's called Prevention in Action. People were taking action, and you know what they were doing? Posting their actions on Facebook. So it was motivating other people and encouraging others to also do the same. So they were sharing their activities that they were doing. They were sharing their actions on there. They were doing visible community actions in communities. Whatever they were doing, they were posting on the Facebook page. And you can still go in on Facebook and you can find it there. Oh, sorry. So from that, I just want to go back. From all this, And just having this group discussions constantly. You got to keep on having dialogues. You can't just come into a community, do one kind of thing and think that it's going to work. It's got to be constantly a constant relationship with communities. So out of all that, people were saying, the people that were trained, that 30,000, those 60,000 people that went through this whole process, and I can verify those numbers. Because we have captured every person that came through the Prevention in Action movement on our data management tool. From the time they entered the process till the time the project was finished. So every person that participated in the Prevention in Action movement, we use a Salesforce. It was a data management tool. And we knew how many people went through and how many sessions they went through, so you could count them. So our monitoring and evaluation and reporting was very, very tight. Because you can't say that I went into a hall and I spoke to 2,000 people. How do you track and monitor that you made an impact to those 3,000 people? So we had this data management tool where we could track how many sessions they went through, what activities they did, what actions they took. So out of all that, the communities were saying, look, we're doing all this over here. Is there something more that we could do? And from communities, this is what came up. From the different discussions, from everything, they said, we want zero tolerance zones in our communities. So, and some were saying we want violence-free, violence against women-free zones in our communities. Because men also get abused. But the stats show that more women are abused. So we couldn't put gender-based violence, we couldn't put it as violence against women. So this is what we came up with, violence-free zones in communities. Violence-free zones is working with communities. The idea emerged for violence-free zones in geographically defined sub-areas within the communities. These were, the people were supported with a violence-free zone toolkit. Hotspots were identified in communities from the people. They were demarcated, branded with signs, symbols, the colors of the Prevention in Action. Public spaces were cleaned up, and household visits were conducted in those zones. The residents, the members, were encouraged to sign manifestos of commitment to ending violence against women in their communities. They were also placing on their doors of their homes violence-free home stickers on their doors. So they took commitments when they signed that manifesto, saying that this is a violence-free zone home in the violence-free zone area. And the violence-free zones, you can see some of the pictures on the sides. People were cleaning up their areas, so they were creating this conducive and enabling environments in those zones. Can you see all the cleanup people were doing? Yeah. From the cleanup, they were painting the different colors of the violence-free zone. So when you came into the zone, into this community, and you saw those colors, you knew that you were walking into a violence-free zone. What also helped with the violence-free zone, if people were not living in the violence-free zone and you were being abused anywhere else, you could come to the violence-free zone because people in that zone were zero tolerance towards violence. And they would help whoever came into that zone. It was like a safe space. So through all the cleanup, as you can see, there were even men in that zone that participated in this cleaning up and the painting and everything, and creating these hotspots in communities and turning them into violence-free zones. We gave them the board, so when you came into the zone, you came in and you saw that you were entering a violence-free zone in the different areas. In those zones, there's so much of activities. You could see there was platforms for women, the South African police services were also involved, your government departments were involved, The municipality supported the process. There was visible community actions in those zones. There were structured information sessions in those zones. But what was nice was that when the zones were created and all this was happening, you found that the police themselves were saying that there's a decrease of reported crimes at the police station in that zone. There was a decrease in crime in the violence-free zones. That came from the police themselves. So people were given t-shirts, toolkits, jackets to show that the movement was going forward. This is a bit of a busy slide, but just to show you that the violence-free zone, what the network did, our organization did, was provide technical assistance and support, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. We did a lot of capacity building, educational workshops, CETA accredited training, networking, partnering, and continuous community mobilization. The violence-free zones, there was information sharing sessions, visible community actions, there was door-to-door campaigns, visiting families, talking to families one-on-one, sharing information on sexual and gender-based violence, violence against women, HIV counseling and testing, referrals to local service providers. If you came into the home and you found there was a problem, because sometimes people don't want to come out of their home and speak about these problems. So when you did this door-to-door campaign, people spoke, and people are not even aware sometimes of services that are available in communities. So this also helped people to know what services they could go for or go to. But mostly it was leading towards all these activities, all this work was leading towards ownership and sustainability of the communities, of the zones. Right at the end there, we created prevention in action committees in those zones, because you can't work with everybody. You had to work with a committee or a task team, and they would attend all the different forums in that community. So they must report to the leaders in that community. You can't just do things in the community. There's leaders that you need to report to. So they would attend community policing forums, the war rooms, the health forums, the youth forums, the safety and security forums, the educational forums, and they would speak about what's going on in the violence-free zones. But out of all this, the highlight was creating Brothers for Life chapters in those zones, because men don't have a platform where they could come and speak about their issues. So you can't create the violence-free zone just to make us a place safe for women and children. We had to get the men involved. So we created Brothers for Life chapters where men could come together and have a platform to speak to each other, support each other, and encourage each other that gender-based violence is wrong and those kind of things. But they could also speak about men's health issues. So there was medical male circumcision that they could speak about, gender-based violence, HIV counseling and testing. We also did the taxi campaign where we branded taxis about men doing the right thing. What was nice was that in the violence-free zones, men were even planting gardens, vegetable gardens. The men that were unemployed, they were planting the vegetable gardens. That was one of the spin-offs. Then they had the Fathers Project, and then they were collecting blankets and things and giving to the elderly people. There were so many things that the men were doing because they had that platform to do these things. And they also used sport as a social intervention. So the violence-free zones actually creates open dialogue between all the stakeholders, local governments, service providers, local leaders, and community members. Rather than parachute programs into these zones, we help to facilitate the process of networking with all role players, capacity building, and linking them to the necessary resources when it's needed, so that they work through the process of providing strategies towards sustainability. Because you as an organization or government department cannot be there all the time. Communities have to take ownership, but they have to be guided and provided that technical assistance and support. The Women's Safety Audit Tool is also a very, very effective mechanism that can be utilized for working towards short, medium, and long-term goals to monitor and evaluate the participatory process and engagements of local municipalities. That tool is a very, very effective tool. So these are just some of the positives from the PIA and the Prevention in Action and Violence-Free Zones. That men, women, and youth, because we also created violence-free zones in the schools. The schools were also involved. They created their own violence-free zone in the school area. So men, women, and youth were working together in the violence-free zones, linking up with local service stakeholders to create these conducive environments that are safe. More women were breaking the silence as they became more aware of their rights through the structured information sessions and what services were available in their communities. Community members were also becoming more proactive now because they were more involved now in this year, in taking and reporting actions to prevent violence against women. Community members also had a very strong sense of ownership and see themselves as agents of change. I'm just going to finish the presentation. So that is just the prevention in action under the social mobilization program that created these violence-free zones, safe spaces in communities. So we talk about urban safety, we need to create these safe spaces in communities. This is just the next 3 slides. So another project that we're working in, that we're piloting now at the moment, is creating safe spaces in communities again, not with the violence-free zones and the PIA. It's called White Door Centers of Hope. The White Door Centers of Hope are spaces in communities for victims of domestic abuse and violence. In response to increased reports of crimes against women and children, the Department of Social Development, the Victim Empowerment Program, in collaboration with other key stakeholders, aim to provide integrated, responsive and quality services to victims of crime and violence. The VEP, the Victim Empowerment Program, has contributed to building safe and peaceful communities, strengthening a human rights culture and providing more effective multi-sectorial, coordinated responses. So it's an integrated approach to victims of crime and trauma, particularly women and children. So one of the responses from that, of the VEP from the Department of Justice, is to establish White Door Centers of Hope that are temporary shelters or temporary safe space that victims can access. So we were mandated to implement 9 White Door Centers of Hope as a pilot project, which will be scaled up throughout the province, seeing how these are going to work. A White Door site operates as a localized reception assessment referral, RAR. I'll explain that now. And is located in or as close to the community as possible. It functions as a short-term safe space that people can access, well, victims. And the services there are very basic. It offers a safe, secure environment, basic emotional containment, basic care items, and refer to the closest professional victim service site, police, social workers, or long-term shelter. So what does a White Door Center mean? What was your understanding? It means that in a community, a home is identified if you've got a spare room. A spare room. So it's your house and you have a spare room. And through meeting with the key stakeholders in the community, they would have probably recommended you, okay? So we screen that home, we screen the people in the home and see if that environment is conducive to have a White Door site. If it is, the lady, we don't have house fathers, sorry, we have house mothers only. So the house mothers are trained to provide those basic services. So it's not a shelter, it's a safe space. So if I'm being abused or I need a safe space, I can come to your home. To that's a White Door site, because it's equipped with 2 beds, linen, all the kind of things that you would find in a shelter, but it's a short term. It's an indirect service, let me put it that way, to the professional services. So when I come into the White Door site and I'm needing that help, and I'm traumatized, the house mother's there to provide that basic emotional containment, calm me down, calm my children down, hear what's going on, and how to refer to the nearest professional services. So these are safe spaces again that are being created in communities. So the White Door site also encourages interaction between the community, local service providers, and local government departments, working together towards the sustainability of these White Door sites. This also enhances consistent communication to network, build relationships between all the role players, and avoid secondary victimization. Because that secondary victimization is something that we suffer a lot with in our service delivery. Sending the person from this department or that NGO, so we're trying to close the gaps on service delivery. The community dialogues on opportunities and possible, to progress as well as mitigate strategies to overcome these challenges. The challenges I'm talking about are the risk around the sites. How do we mitigate those risks among the sites? Of abusers coming to the sites, because it's just an ordinary home with an ordinary family that has provided the safe space. So we also, through the community dialogues, we use the DRA process, dialogue, reflection, action. The dialogue is to engage all community engagers, all key stakeholders. I'm done. To engage all the key stakeholders, mapping of services that are available in those communities, and create an enabling environment hosting crime prevention activities, marketing and promoting the sites with open information day in various places in the communities. These are the last 3 slides and I'm done. Okay, so that's the I'm only on creating safe spaces. So this is another one, project that we're involved in. It's called the Durban Green Corridor. It looks at people, economy, and the environment. I'm going to slide through this one. So you can see there's ecotourism, environment, social economy. The Durban Green Corridors, through the ecotourism, tries to create, taking open spaces where there's a lot of vegetation, cleaning it up to create those open spaces for planting and using the land. Let's use the land, kind of a thing. And it produces income, generating income to those families around those Durban Green Corridors. So the program enhances value of open spaces. It's critical to rural areas, especially with food security, planting, especially women and most vulnerable members of society. It's about developing skills, access to land, and sustainable use of the land. So if land is standing there and it's not being used, it needs to be cleared up and used. And these tourism programs of the Durban Green Corridors that allow for direct social economic value to rural communities from the tourism. People come and visit these nature reserves, because that's what Durban Green Corridors is all about. But when they come, they got to go through a community to get to the nature reserve. Why drive through the community and just look at the people's houses? So you stop over where the women play a vital role in those communities. And they are often drivers of the services, such as you can stay over, feel what's it like to stay in this community, the traditional experience that, and eat the meals from locally produced foods that come from the same land where the vegetables are planted. The last slide. There's also a youth development program in the Durban Green Corridors, where it's focused on free play activities. It provides valuable after-school security, food and development. The Children's Wilderness area focus on the concept of free play in open spaces, a critical component of early childhood development, learning how to climb trees, hiking, quad biking, canoeing. All those things are in the Durban Green Corridors for the youth. And the Children's Wilderness areas also play a lead role and foundation in our environment educational programs. The youth also have vegetable gardens in the Durban Green Corridors in those areas. So they also learning about the environment, they're also learning what it is to generate income, how to use it again. There's so much around the Durban Green Corridors, but it's about using the open spaces, creating safe spaces, as part of this conference. Thank you. I'm not going to do the recommendations now.
Thank you, Ms. Cookie Edward. That was a very good presentation. I think in a nutshell, to sum it up all, we've had a very good experience from how in her community, local governments can partner with women, with women's organizations to kind of create, to increase social cohesion and equity in cities. And this can be done through creating safe spaces for women. So that is one way, one practice. She has shared with us different practices, but that is a way in which local governments can be able to increase safety and create sustainable cities. We have our second speaker. Our second speaker is Mayor Fatmatu Mint Abdul Malik. She was elected mayor for Tevra Zeina in 2001 and was re-elected in 2008. Tevra Zeina is a commune of the capital Nouakchott in western Mauritania. Mayor Malik is also the president of Refela, which is a network of local elected women in Africa. She advocates for inclusion of women and girls. She advocates for inclusion of women and girls' specific needs in the post-2015 agenda. She has taken part in multiple disaster risk reduction campaigns and worked to raise awareness of risk investment ability to increase disaster resilience. So welcome, Mayor Fatmatu. She will share with us how in her work as a leader, as a local leader, how she has ensured that there is gender equity and inclusion of women, especially in decision-making processes and in budgeting processes. Welcome. Thank you.
Merci. Je suis donc en mon troisième mandat, donc bientôt 15 ans de fonction de maire. C'est pourquoi je m'excuse si j'ai été un peu en retard, parce que le maire, quand il est appelé par les associations des habitants, il ne peut pas refuser. Donc j'ai fait un petit crochet là-bas pour lancer un peu avec les associations des habitants un événement. Alors, moi je vais m'étaler un peu sur un certain nombre d'activités innovantes qu'on peut réaliser au niveau local pour réduire les inégalités. Mais avant d'aborder réellement succinctement ces différentes activités, je voudrais quand même revenir pour rappeler un peu la situation de la femme en Afrique notamment. Si tout le monde s'accorde sur la nécessité d'impliquer la femme dans le développement, et si je dis tout le monde, ça veut dire la Charte des Nations Unies, les OMD et même les ODD, parce que désormais on a un ODD spécifique, l'ODD 5 pour l'égalité, ONU Femmes, PNUD, la Charte des CGLU, Cité Gouvernement Locaux Unis, donc les constitutions des pays, un arsenal de textes qui fait qu'il n'y ait pas de discrimination dans ces textes-là. Mais vous convenez avec moi que la pratique, c'est autre chose. Dans la réalité, c'est autre chose. Alors, les femmes, elles disposent de certains atouts, notamment leur poids démographique, donc 51 à 52 parfois. Elles ont une espérance de vie plus grande que celle des hommes. Et ici, quand on parle homme-femme, ce n'est pas dans l'optique de faire, de créer une crise, c'est plutôt c'est pour par souci de bien-être de la société. C'est pour le développement, tout simplement. Parce qu'on ne peut pas assurer un développement, la société n'avancera pas alors que 52% de cette société sont à la touche. Alors, je disais, elles ont une espérance de vie importante. Elles ont un leadership de plus en plus développé. Elles sont mobilisatrices, c'est un atout. Parce que quand on va dans nos pays, pendant les élections, c'est les femmes qui animent, c'est elles qui mobilisent, et c'est elles qui votent aussi. C'est elles qui votent. Même si elles ne sont pas positionnées dans les listes électorales. Elles votent quand même. Alors, en dépit de ces atouts, il n'en demeure pas moins qu'ils sont restés analphabètes, pauvres. Sur le milliard de pauvres dans le monde, 60% sont femmes. Elles ne sont pas, ou très peu, propriétaires fonciers, donc 1 à 2% dans nos sociétés, même si parfois elles contribuent à hauteur de 80% de la ration alimentaire de la famille en Afrique subsaharienne. Elles ne sont pas employeurs, chefs d'entreprise, parce que tout simplement, elles n'ont pas accès aux garanties, parce qu'encore une fois, elles sont pauvres. Donc les structures formelles demandent des garanties, les banques demandent des garanties, et les femmes ne peuvent pas le faire. Rares celles qui le font. Elles sont très peu représentées, en tout cas dans la majorité des pays, c'est toujours 20% dans les listes, au niveau des postes électifs. Même si certains pays ont adopté la parité, mais la majorité est loin d'être d'adopter la même attitude. Alors, nous devons, au niveau local, et là je parle en tant que maire, nous devons innover. Nous devons créer des actions qui vont réduire, des actions innovantes qui vont réduire les inégalités. Parce qu'encore une fois, les inégalités, il y a plusieurs formes d'inégalités, mais les plus flagrantes sont l'égalité de genre. Ce sont les plus flagrantes. Et c'est celles qui freinent le développement, en réalité, parce que on n'a pas évolué depuis toujours. Hein. On a les mêmes discours, les mêmes arsenals de textes, mais on n'a pas évolué. Donc là, il faut nécessairement mettre le doigt sur le mal pour le soigner. Et ça ne peut être qu'après avoir assuré l'égalité. Donc, alors, pour les actions innovantes, moi je proposerais de commencer d'abord par les structures éducatives. Au niveau des pays, on doit nécessairement mettre en place des infrastructures scolaires dans des coins reculés. Parce que la tendance est que dans nos pays, les villages, par exemple, dans les villages, quand on n'a pas de collège, par exemple, on n'a pas de lycée, les filles ne vont pas se déplacer, la famille ne va pas se déplacer avec les filles. Alors, elles sont tenues, je dirais arbitrairement, de rester et de rompre aux études. Donc il faut commencer déjà par là. Il faut encourager les filles à aller dans les écoles et il faut encourager les gouvernements à mettre en place les infrastructures nécessaires. Il faut aussi, parallèlement à cela, mettre en place des programmes d'alphabétisation pour les femmes, cette fois-ci. Commencer par les filles, mais cette fois, c'est les femmes. Parce qu'en réalité, ces femmes préparent les générations de relève. Comment voulez-vous qu'une génération de relève soit préparée par une femme analphabète? Ce n'est pas l'idéal. Donc, elles ont besoin d'être éduquées elles-mêmes et de voir ce qu'elles ont à faire pour bien préparer la génération de relève. Il faut encourager les filles d'aller dans des disciplines scientifiques parce qu'on a tendance à féminiser certains métiers. On dira secrétaire, quand on parle de secrétaire, c'est une femme, automatique. Quand on parle de sage-femme, c'est une femme, même si c'est un homme qui fait le métier. Donc il faut surseoir à cela. Il faut nécessairement qu'on puisse encourager les filles à accéder aux disciplines scientifiques. Et cela pourra se faire, par exemple, par la mise en place de prix en termes de compétition pour encourager les filles à aller dans les disciplines scientifiques. Il faut appuyer les femmes à mettre en place, à faire un montage de projets. Parce que dans nos pays, les femmes ne trouvent pas mieux de refuge que le secteur informel. Il faut les encourager à formaliser leurs projets, que ce soit des projets bien montés, bien ficelés, pour être employeurs, parce qu'on a besoin de femmes qui sont chefs d'entreprise. Parce que c'est ça qui va permettre à d'autres femmes d'accéder à des opportunités de travail. Il faut alléger les tâches des femmes au niveau rural. C'est important. Comment nous, aujourd'hui, on peut encore concevoir qu'une femme au niveau rural, en Afrique, continue avec la corvée d'eau, à chercher l'eau sur des kilomètres ou sur des... Okay. Yusra, s'il te plaît, tu viens leur prendre une photo. C'est important. Elles veulent leur photo. Comment voulez-vous qu'à l'heure où nous sommes, les femmes encore en Afrique au niveau rural font leur cuisine avec du bois de chauffe et ils font parfois plusieurs kilomètres pour l'avoir. Déjà, le sujet d'actualité, le changement climatique, déjà il faut mettre en place un certain nombre d'infrastructures et d'équipements pour mettre la main sur ces comportements, je dirais, qui ne sont pas en adéquation avec les changements climatiques. Donc là, il y a aussi un aspect éducatif pour lequel il faut un peu s'orienter aux femmes. Alors, il faut créer des espaces d'écoute pour les femmes. C'est important. Ma sœur a parlé des violences faites aux femmes. Je ne reviens pas sur ce sujet. Mais il faut que dans nos villes, dans nos cités, que nous ayons des espaces dédiés aux femmes, des espaces d'écoute aux femmes pour qu'elles viennent exposer leurs problèmes, qu'elles ne soient pas isolées, battues dans leur coin. Il faut qu'elles puissent être accueillies et qu'elles puissent être mises en confiance, qu'elles puissent s'exprimer et qu'on puisse mettre la main sur cela. Il faut aussi nécessairement créer au niveau local, au niveau des communes, au niveau des villes, des radios locales dédiées aux femmes. Pour les éduquer, pour les orienter, pour les sensibiliser sur l'hygiène, etc. Dans certains pays, on vient de vivre des situations de pandémie dangereuses, extraordinaires. Donc là, il faut et les femmes peuvent être vraiment, à la base justement, peuvent être un élément de vraies actrices pour éradiquer ces pandémies-là. Donc moi je pense qu'il faut il faut se dissocier de l'idée selon laquelle les femmes sont vulnérables et puis c'est tout. Non. Non. Elles doivent être considérées comme des actrices dans le développement, de vraies actrices dans le développement et des actrices incontournables dans le développement. Donc, notre société avancera, le développement se fera au niveau local, si et seulement si notre agenda aura retenu pour devise ne laissons personne pour compte. Donc, il faut prendre en considération tout le monde, et notamment les femmes. Il n'y a pas de raison qu'elles soient mises à la touche alors qu'elles sont nombreuses, qu'elles sont dynamiques, il y a des compétences, c'est pas normal. C'est pas normal tout ça. Donc le développement ne se fera pas sans les femmes. et il se fera au niveau local avec les femmes. Nous sommes appelés, nous, en tant qu'autorité locale, en tant que collectivité locale, à traduire justement en politique locale les expériences accumulées par les associations, les organisations féminines. C'est important. Nous devons aussi quantifier et valoriser ce que font les femmes, le travail des femmes, parce qu'il n'est pas compris dans le flux économique, alors que c'est extrêmement important. C'est pas normal, c'est une injustice. J'ai dit tout à l'heure qu'elle contribue à hauteur de 80% dans la ration alimentaire de la famille parfois, en Afrique subsaharienne. Il faut que ça soit quantifié quelque part, comptabilisé. C'est pas normal. Voilà, donc je ne veux pas vous embêter avec, je peux rester toute la journée à dire toutes ces choses-là. Mais en tout cas, je sais qu'au niveau de ma commune, il y a une approche participative qui s'adresse particulièrement aux femmes et aux organisations de femmes, encore une fois, qui sont très organisées, en comité de quartier, et pour lesquelles c'est notre raison d'être, nous autres, en tant qu'élus locaux. Je pense qu'il y a lieu de prendre en compte toutes ces actions-là au niveau local, faites par les femmes, et de les comptabiliser, de les aider, de les encadrer, de les appuyer pour qu'elles puissent sortir un peu de ces ghettos de pauvreté et d'analphabétisme. Merci.
Thank you, Mayor Fatmetu, for that very good presentation, emphasizing the need for empowerment for women and participation of women in decision-making processes. Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to open it up to us all. If you have any questions or any contributions, we'll be happy to have that. So can we have, okay? Okay, I don't know if we can move this around.
They let you come to the front.
Or do you want to come to the front? Yes, please. We have one microphone.
Thank you. I am going to speak in French because my English is very bad. D'abord, je me présente. Donc, je suis maire pour le deuxième mandat, un peu inférieur à notre ami. Je suis du Maroc. D'abord, j'aurais aimé qu'au niveau de cette salle, qu'il y ait beaucoup d'hommes que de femmes. Parce que le message, normalement, devait être adressé aux hommes. Mais les femmes, elles sont là, elles subissent, les hommes ne sont pas là. Donc, déjà, moi, je ne suis pas content du tout. Et j'ai choisi cet atelier exprès parce que j'aimerais me mettre à la place des femmes. Chacun de nous a des expériences. Moi, au niveau de ma commune, j'essaie toujours de valoriser le travail de la femme. J'essaie toujours d'encourager la femme. Moi, je suis venu un peu en retard. J'ai écouté la première intervention. Je crois qu'il est de l'Afrique du Sud, si je ne me trompe pas. C'est vrai, c'est une expérience réussie, mais qui suscite d'abord une condition nécessaire. D'abord, c'est combattre l'analphabétisme. Vous avez parlé de Facebook, vous avez parlé aujourd'hui chez nous, comme a parlé notre ami de Mauritanie. La plupart des femmes n'utilisent pas le Facebook, ne sont pas capables. Donc il y a un travail, je crois qu'il y a un travail à faire comme recommandation. Donc c'est essayer de combattre l'analphabétisme, notamment des femmes. Donc il faut d'abord, parce que c'est la clé de tous les problèmes, c'est combattre l'analphabétisme. Aujourd'hui, la question qu'on peut se poser, est-ce qu'il y a la volonté politique des pays africains pour généraliser cette expérience? Donc c'est une expérience qu'il faut généraliser, mais moi je recommande, ça devrait être l'objet d'un manuel de procédure qui doit être généralisé. Mais là aussi, il faut une volonté politique. Manuel de procédure parce que moi, je dis que nous parlons de l'agenda 2063, on doit quand même rêver d'une Afrique bien développée, qui donne tous ses droits à la femme. Donc nous devons maintenant faire des recommandations. Comment on veut voir l'Afrique d'ici 2063. Cette expérience que nous avons vue, surtout au niveau de l'Afrique du Sud, moi je crois qu'il faut généraliser. Et je crois aussi que cette expérience nécessite l'engagement des départements ministériels parce qu'il a besoin d'employer les grands moyens pour sensibiliser la population. Et ça ne devrait pas être l'affaire des coopératives ou des associations, ça devrait être l'affaire des gouvernements. Parce que pour atteindre 6 000 ou 60 000 personnes, est-ce qu'aujourd'hui nous avons, comme j'ai dit, d'abord la volonté et les moyens. Et ça, c'est la clé de tout le... Enfin, je m'adresse à toutes les mères, surtout les femmes. Moi, j'ai une petite brochure que je vais mettre à votre disposition qui donne un petit peu, qui fait sur ma commune. Et si jamais il y a, surtout les mères, les femmes, qui veulent qu'on échange de visites et d'expériences, ça serait les bienvenus. Donc la brochure elle est en anglais et en français. Ça me ferait énormément plaisir d'avoir des jumelages, des partenariats. Je crois que c'est le seul moyen pour... Donc si on doit donc, comme dire, on doit interpeller les gouvernements. C'est nous les élus qui devrons interpeller les gouvernements pour que le gouvernement s'aligne avec notre politique. Il ne faut pas attendre que les gens qui gouvernent ne fassent ça. Sinon, nous aimons l'Afrique, donc nous devons œuvrer tous pour l'Afrique. Il faut combattre les murs qui sont entre les pays, il faut les détruire, comme le mur de Berlin. Voilà. Merci beaucoup. Je vais mettre à votre disposition la brochure et ça me ferait plaisir de faire connaissance de plusieurs femmes mères. Merci.
Thank you for being a gender-sensitive man and for coming for this session. Let's finish this side and then we'll go to this side. But we'll need, who is next? You can come and take the floor. And then we'll come to this level. Make it short.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Program Director. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maleboro Kruger. I'm the town mayor of Lubazi, Botswana.
Oh, right.
And my question goes to Kuki Edwards. I got the name right?
Yeah.
First of all, let me thank you very much for your very informative presentation. I really liked it and it really got me thinking. I have a very short question for you. It's about the White Door Centers of Hope. I didn't get clearly what you got in place to keep away the perpetrators. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You just take note of the question and yes, please, you can take the floor.
Merci. Je voudrais remercier, je vais parler en français, je vais remercier les intervenants. Toutes les deux nous ont exposé des situations extrêmes vécues par des femmes dans des villes, dans nos villes en Afrique. Et je voudrais faire un appel. Hier, on a été en séance d'ouverture. Il y a eu différentes interventions. Et une des interventions qui a clôturé, parce qu'elle a recentré justement ce qui a été dit par les hauts responsables, etc., c'est celle du professeur M. Alioune Sall. Cette intervention était très intéressante et je voudrais faire un appel ici, puisque nous sommes dans une session concernant les mouvements des femmes, pour qu'elles prennent le pas. Car j'ai constaté que, à la fois au niveau des discours et au niveau justement de l'intervention du professeur Alioune Sall, qui a parlé de ce concept fort intéressant, il faut que les femmes le notent dans leur agenda, qu'elles réfléchissent, qu'elles fassent des focus group, etc., qu'elles réfléchissent sur ce concept de la prospective au niveau du continent africain. Et il faut que les femmes s'impliquent, car comme j'ai dit, à la fois au niveau du discours, mais aussi au niveau de l'analyse du professeur Alioune, l'égalité femmes-hommes, le genre, tous les travaux et toutes les actions conjuguées que les femmes africaines ont conduit dans différents pays, du nord au sud, ne se sont pas retrouvées dans ce discours autour de la prospective qui va mobiliser à la fois le CGLUA et voire d'autres instances au niveau international. Ce concept, cette approche de la prospective devrait aussi être appropriée par les femmes, car allons-nous encore une fois évoluer dans ce domaine de la prospective pour que par la suite, on va dire « Ah, il faut faire de la prospective sensible au genre ». Vous voyez ? Et à ce moment-là, on commence à rechercher les méthodes, les outils pour pouvoir intégrer le genre dans un domaine donné, et à savoir aujourd'hui ce domaine de la prospective qui va mobiliser à la fois les intellectuels, les activistes et bien sûr les organisations. Et merci.
Okay, thank you. Are we done with this side? Do we have any question? Okay, so we move to this side. Okay.
I thank you, and I'm grateful. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum, bonjour, I don't know any other language. Tumela, Saubonani, that's South African. Yes. I am wishing to be just grateful today. You know, our mayor has allowed us as civil society from NGOs to come together to this meeting, so it's most interesting. It's our first time. And I thank the mayor and all the people responsible for allowing us to be there. What I want to raise is I attended a meeting at the Pan-African Parliament. We were invited this year. This year is really the year of the women, where women are coming together. And I was amazed at some of the things that were said in the Pan-African Parliament. 53 countries, women coming together to celebrate. And we have the Maputo protocols, you know, which was where countries ratified, deposited, and what have you. How much are we doing with the Maputo protocols? Because that's a document that all countries agreed to in relation to gender issues. It's there. Women have done it, you know. It's a question of structure and how do we work together across countries, irrespective of which country it is. We work together on the same document. It is there. We don't need to constantly reinvent the wheel, constantly policy and things like that. Because there's an important thing that was said there on the board, on the billboard. It said, everybody doesn't know everything, but everybody knows something. We see in our liberation in this country, we were being indoctrinated to learn in a particular way. That's what we rose up against. Because people wanted to have these colonized minds so that people can control the colonized minds, and we broke out of that. We rid ourselves of apartheid. We now want to make sure that we share with everyone else that helped us to get to our freedom without conflict. And that's where Resolution 1325 becomes very important for us as women in securitization and the peacemaking and the peace building and the peacekeeping. We need to be very aware of that. And it is not only government's role to do that. And we are there as civil society. We don't want to be elected into positions. We want to be able to be free to work. As my colleague just said to me, no, you're free, Auntie Bibi, just go talk. Thank you so much. Go and be free and talk. That's who we are as South Africans. We're free. We don't feel we have to hold people up into high esteem or start worshipping individuals and things like that, because personality cult is not part of our nature. It is not. You don't become groupies of one person. You look at the character of the person. That's why the Tanzanian government is wonderful what the Tanzanian government is coming about. It's giving an impetus of what the African continent must be. And there's examples. You know, leadership lead by example. But the point is that each country has the Pan-African women's organizations. And why are we not using and making sure we strengthen that Pan-African women's organization in our country so that we can cross, irrespective of which the leadership changes and what have you, we hold on to what was the Pan-African Women's Organization. We have a body now here in South Africa called the Progressive Women's Movement, pulling together women from all different sectors and trying to build together. Unfortunately, and that is why people have you heard of the PhD? Okay. Now we need to take that and make it positive. Sometimes pull her down syndrome. Okay. Or pull him down syndrome. That's what people call PhD. It's not what you think of the PhD. So we need to take that because we've got leaders. Take, for instance, an example. We have Nkosazana Zuma. Yes. And people might say, you're going to pull her down. We need her in South Africa. Maybe we want to push her and to say, we want her as the president. Does it mean we're pulling her down? We need her expertise. We need her experience. And this is what the world is about. The world needs women. If we want to rid ourselves of the conflict of the world, let's make sure we have women leaders that lead in the correct manner. I thank you.
Thank you very much for those very powerful messages. Can you say here?
I can sit on it.
Yeah.
I did mistake. Thank you very much. I'm Noncha from South Africa. I'm in the same group with the lady that talked. Before I forget, I heard yesterday that 2015, I may not be using the correct words, was declared the year of women in Africa. And then there was also another sentence which was saying even 2016 will have something to do with women. I just want to start there to say, in terms of the agreement for 2015, can we request the people that are in AU to give us a report on what happened in terms of that commitment? Because if we don't follow up what people say, we may be dancing in one place. Now, coming to what we are here for, I was attracted by the topic that said mobilization of women. And my point of departure is to say, have we defined the mentality of women before we even mobilize them? Because I think if we have not defined their mentality, we may not be able to mobilize them because they are still in the chains of patriarchy. So what I'm proposing is that the first step in mobilization, let's take the theory that was developed in the States around slave mentality. Because I take it that women are slaves of men mentally. we may not take it as it is, but we'll take certain aspects and translate them into women. After that, I think once we have agreed that we need to clear our minds of the mentality of being slaves of patriarchy, then we must go to the second step of saying mental liberation. We cannot mobilize women for the sake of mobilizing women. They must have a base of understanding that they're in the shackles of patriarchy, and then from there, they've got to liberate themselves. I may not go into details, but there is theory of mental liberation, especially in the Black consciousness organizations in South Africa. I happen not to belong to them. Please, I'm just a South African. But I think we must take things that are going to build us. We fit it into women because that mental liberation was a political one. But the power of women in society is still political. And if we don't define it that way, we'll never take power. Then I think I appreciated what was presented by South Africa. And I think we should be asking her to do more of sharing of what they are doing. I mean, that's how we develop in networking and taking what other people are saying. I was in a commission yesterday, or before I go to the commission, I wanted to say also, to praise the South African government, which has adopted the philosophy of people shall govern, which is emanating from the Freedom Charter. They've translated it into all the acts. We've got governance structures. You go to police, you'll get a community police forum group. You go to school, you'll get a school governing body. You go to wheresoever, you go to the ward committee, because we are in local government here. The laws that are governing local government make it imperative that a ward councillor shall have 10 people that are assisting her in that particular ward. Now, what is important is that in some areas, like where I'm coming from, it's imperative that there shall be a ward committee member who is dealing with women and children. Good as it may be, the challenge is, do these people know what they should be doing? Because if it is just for legislative conformity, it may not be doing good for women. I think the challenge that we've got as a country is to translate those governance structures to do what they are meant to be doing. We also have a presidency, we've got a Department of Women, and I'm also convinced that if we can have a Department of Women that is not well defined, it may be well defined, but not well defined to all the women, so that they see it as a liberation tool that has been put by the country. So in summary, what I'm saying, we may have political commitments, laws, policies, but if they are not changed, we as women, through the mobilization that the topic is saying, we can make the leaders to ensure that they put resources for the translation. I'm going to be very fast now. In the commission that I was, they were saying, let's liberate ourselves from participation, because it's no more having meaning. And that person was presenting, was saying, let's talk about collaboration. Because once you talk about collaboration, it means it's not participation of women only. You also look for other people who are going to come and assist. And I think it links with what the mayor was saying here, to say, where are the men? Because we should be collaborating with them. Chairperson, I think I will come back then when we come to proposals, because it was said, let's come up with proposals that shall make local government to transform.
Thank you very much for emphasizing issues of effective participation, putting laws into practice. Let's have two more, and then we'll get back to the floor. So we'll have her, and we give the gentleman an opportunity. We have an issue of the length.
It won't reach there. She'll have to come to the front.
Just, you miss. It's okay.
Just need like for 5 minutes just to put all the notes and stuff together so I can do the
You can do the thing.
You must just take a few.
Yeah, just tell him like a 5 minute stretch. But you know what? We're gonna go and they're gonna go out and they're serving lunch and they won't come back.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't put my question in English. Je vais parler en français. Bonjour tout le monde. Moi, je vais poser une petite question à Madame le maire. Elle a parlé de la valorisation et de la quantification du travail de la femme. Chez nous, la femme, et surtout la femme rurale, elle est très opprimée. Elle ne connaît pas son travail et c'est les hommes qui les jugent. Je veux savoir, elle fait tout, mais elle ne sait pas ses devoirs. Je veux savoir comment elle peut être valorisée. Même la femme, en ville, dans les localités, elle a énormément de problèmes avec les hommes. Elle pense que la femme vient arracher leur place. Et c'est eux seuls qui sont les maîtres. Donc, je veux savoir comment on peut valoriser le travail de la femme pour qu'elle accède. On a 216 maires, alors que 5 seulement sont des femmes. Je vous remercie.
Very good question. Okay, we'll have a response to that. Okay, you'll have to move to the front. Sorry about that.
Ok, merci. Je vais parler en français parce que j'ai des difficultés en anglais. Voilà, je suis Monsieur Ntsika Claude et j'ai travaillé dans mon pays parce que je suis du Congo-Brazzaville. J'étais responsable de la promotion de la femme aux Nations Unies au Congo-Brazzaville, en particulier au PNUD, UNDP. Et donc, tout récemment même, j'étais consultant pour l'élaboration d'un document chargé de revoir les actions des Nations Unies au Congo pour les corriger, en particulier dans le domaine des femmes. Bon, j'ai écouté tous les orateurs, en particulier les oratrices, pardon. J'ai écouté toutes les oratrices. Et donc, en fait, il y a un point qui me marque. Déjà, pour la première intervenante, j'ai aimé le titre. Je crois que c'était la prévention ou l'action de la prévention. Yes. Alors, moi, j'ai remarqué qu'en ce qui concerne les violences faites aux femmes, de par mon expérience, parce que je suis en même temps président d'honneur d'une association qui s'occupe des femmes, dont ma femme est la présidente, bien sûr. Et donc, par rapport à ça, en particulier au regard de l'expérience du Congo-Brazzaville, je remarque que ce problème se pose d'une façon générale dans les campagnes. Parce que dans les villes, c'est beaucoup plus ou moins ce que je pourrais appeler un peu des couples intellectuels. Et donc, certains comportements sont plus ou moins contrôlés. Alors que dans les campagnes, je crois qu'il faut mettre un accent particulier. Parce que je crois que c'est Madame le maire qui vient de dire ça, Madame la maire, permettez, que vous avez parlé de l'éducation, qu'il fallait vraiment mettre un accent particulier pour l'éducation des femmes et des filles. Et au Congo, par exemple, au niveau de l'intérieur, quand on avance un peu, l'éducation est gratuite, c'est vrai. Il ne se pose pas le problème d'éducation des filles. Mais quelque part, c'est que quand on arrive, on trouve qu'il y a, plus qu'on avance, il y a un taux de pourcentage des filles qui se réduit au même moment qu'on avance. Donc vous avez un taux élevé à l'école primaire, au collège ça se réduit, au lycée ça se réduit, à l'université ça devient très très petit. Donc ce que je voulais dire, c'est que il faut, en termes de prévention, mettre un accent particulier dans les campagnes. Parce que moi je reste convaincu que quand la campagne prend l'élan, tout le pays suit. Et donc, je souhaiterais vivement que les actions de prévention soient menées au niveau des campagnes, en associant celles que je peux appeler les femmes analphabètes. Parce qu'il arrive un moment où, pour la majorité de ces femmes des campagnes, elles considèrent que ces choses sont celles des femmes intellectuelles. C'est pour ça, dans l'action, je pense que même dans les conférences, qu'on s'arrange de faire venir des femmes des campagnes, au risque d'appeler des femmes illettrées, réussir à les faire comprendre, parce que ce sont ces femmes qui seront les véritables véhicules, les véritables communicatrices au niveau de la grande majorité qu'on peut appeler un peu analphabète. Également, à titre personnel, je me dis, est-ce qu'on ne peut pas mettre un accent particulier, en quelque sorte en demandant aux épouses des chefs d'État. J'ai déjà vu des épouses des chefs d'État se réunir pour des causes telles que la drépanocytose, mais par exemple au niveau panafricain, est-ce qu'on ne peut pas avoir les épouses des chefs d'État ensemble qui puissent par exemple se réunir pour dire non aux violences faites aux femmes? J'en ai terminé. Merci.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Let's give them an opportunity to respond to some of the issues that have been raised. Then we'll have 2 more questions and then we can wrap up. Thank you.
Give it to her first. Give it to her first. You can go first.
If you want.
No.
Alors, moi, j'ai pas eu beaucoup de questions, mais je vais quand même m'étaler sur répondre un peu sur 2 questions. Celle relative à la prise de conscience des femmes. C'est vrai que l'émancipation de la femme, ou la place de la femme, ou la collaboration, si notre sœur l'appelle comme ça, de la femme, ne peut se faire que si il y a une prise de conscience des femmes elles-mêmes, c'est clair. Donc il faut commencer par ça. Et c'est un grand combat, parce que déjà, la discrimination, elle se fait déjà au niveau du foyer. Comprenez bien. Et c'est les femmes qui sont un peu l'artisane de cette discrimination. Parce que quand nos femmes au niveau rural disent à leurs filles, voilà, vous allez faire la corvée avec moi et louper, bouder 1 ou 2 cours à l'école. Donc déjà, c'est ça déjà. Et puis si on dit, on fait une différence entre les enfants, on dit à la fille, voilà, toi tu ne peux faire que ça, et lui c'est un garçon, il peut faire. Déjà la discrimination, elle se fait au niveau des foyers, et c'est les femmes qui la prennent, qui la font. C'est pas normal. Donc il faut déjà une prise de conscience des femmes elles-mêmes. Et si on regarde sous un autre angle aussi, au niveau électif par exemple, on se rend compte que les femmes, je l'avais dit tout à l'heure, c'est elles qui mobilisent, c'est elles qui animent et c'est elles qui votent. Mais elles sont rarement positionnées dans ces listes électorales-là. Donc elles considèrent qu'elles vont appuyer le mari ou le frère ou le père, le cousin, mais pas elles, mais pas appuyer les femmes. Et ça, c'est une autre prise de conscience aussi pour laquelle il faut mener un grand combat. D'ailleurs, il y a une expression éloquente de cette prise de conscience, c'est que notre salle est pratiquement vide, alors que c'est un sujet extrêmement important qui concerne les femmes et qui concerne les hommes aussi, naturellement. Donc, parce qu'encore une fois, ce n'est pas un combat, ce n'est pas une situation conflictuelle entre hommes et femmes, c'est plutôt un discours, c'est plutôt un message pour la société, pour le bien-être de la société et pour le développement. Parce que quand il y a le développement, quand il y a le bien-être de la société, on est tous là-dedans, on est tous inclus là-dedans. Alors, pour la deuxième question relative à la valorisation du travail des femmes. Bon, moi je vais dire par là, par ce qu'on appelle la valorisation, je vais dire par là qu'on puisse, d'ailleurs je l'avais un peu évoqué en termes de compétition avec par exemple au niveau des coopératives féminines, le travail qu'elles font, au niveau du foyer, au niveau même dans le secteur informel, il y a des femmes qui sont leaders dans ce domaine-là, dans le secteur informel, et qui font, alors qu'elles ne savent pas écrire, elles font leurs transactions à travers juste une calculatrice, elles ne savent pas communiquer avec leur interlocuteur qu'avec la calculatrice. Donc elles arrivent à mener les transactions comme ça. Donc elles sont formidables, ces femmes-là. tout ce qu'elles font n'est justement pas valorisé, n'est pas pris en compte dans le flux économique. Donc il y a lieu justement de les appuyer, de les encadrer, de les former, de leur attribuer des prix, pourquoi pas, pour un peu valoriser ce qu'elles font et de l'inclure et de le quantifier. Il faut le quantifier, il n'est jamais quantifié, il n'est jamais, comment dirais-je, il n'est jamais rémunéré, si on peut dire. En d'autres termes aussi, la femme au niveau du foyer, ce qu'elle fait, c'est extraordinaire, mais on ne le met pas en considération, il n'y a pas, on ne le quantifie pas. Donc, voilà, donc c'est un peu ça. Je suis désolée. C'est vrai qu'au niveau rural, il y a des problèmes, plus qu'au niveau des villes, même si au niveau des villes aussi, il y a des problèmes, il y a des sérieux problèmes, parce qu'on a parlé tout à l'heure des violences faites aux femmes, donc il faut des villes plus sûres pour nous. On ne peut pas voir l'anarchie des villes, et puis ça augmente les inégalités aussi. Hein, l'urbanisation galopante ne fait qu'augmenter les inégalités entre hommes et femmes, et même d'autres segments de population, d'autres formes d'inégalité. Donc je pense je suis d'accord qu'il faut axer sur l'éducation, il faut axer sur le rural, il faut mettre un minimum d'infrastructures pour mettre à l'aise un peu ces femmes-là. Il faut qu'elles soient formées, appuyées, encadrées pour qu'elles puissent concilier entre le foyer, qui est une mission très noble. Hein. Il ne faut pas oublier que quand on élève ses enfants, d'ailleurs, si on laisse un seul jour entre les enfants et les hommes, ça va faire la guerre, hein. Ça va faire un grand bordel à la maison. Donc il suffit que les femmes disent un jour, voilà, aucune femme ne s'occupe des enfants aujourd'hui, ni du foyer. Et là, ça va faire, je vous assure, ça va faire un grand problème au niveau du foyer. Voilà, je suis désolée. Merci.
Thank you. My responses are quite short and to the point. One of the participants, the delegates, asked about the risk around the white door sites. Working towards risk management around the site is to mitigate the risk from perpetrators and abusers coming to the white door sites and fighting the family there, in that space. So what we do is we have crime prevention activities around the white door sites. Neighbors, family, friends around the white door sites do crime prevention activities. Explain to them what the white door site is all about, to get their support and their buy-in. So if anything like that there happens, it's like your violence-free zones, creating those safe spaces around the sites, getting the support of your local councillors, your local municipalities, all involved in the crime prevention activities, your police, your neighbors, your friends. It's not just putting the white door site there, but also talking to the people around there to support it. So I hope that answers your risk management around there. Because we have to protect the family. Yeah. Another point was using about Facebook. We didn't only use Facebook for the prevention in action, where people could report the action. We used all forms of communication so that people, even those that were illiterate, were able to communicate the action that they took. We used all forms. I just put that one up there, but there's all different forms of media that we used. Because we know that a lot of women in the rural areas would not have been able to get to Facebook or communicate on WhatsApp, but there were other forms of communication tools that we used. The other one was, I want to come back to the speaker about, that spoke about our government, the South African government. I would say that our government is doing excellent work. Especially if you look at our constitution, very progressive, recognizes women's rights as human rights. We have very, very good legislation. We have gender focal points in most government departments, but the shortfall is that there's one person that has to look after gender. And when you find that when you go into these municipalities or these government departments, it's one person who's looking after gender issues with no support and very limited funding. So we need, those are some of the shortcomings that, and challenges that we need to look at. The other thing is, on the, with our government, there's a lot of, as I said, there was a lot of work that they have put into place around the empowerment of women, gender equality and all that there. But where we have a problem, despite the wonderful legislation, is the shortcomings, the due diligence in service delivery. If we can close those gaps, I think we would overcome a lot of our problems. So I just want to stress the due diligence on the shortcomings in terms of service delivery is things that we need to look at hard and fast to eliminate this problem. Thank you.
Thank you both for your responses. We are going to move to the policy recommendations, but before we go to the policy recommendations, that we'll have a summary of those. We had a burning issue here, so we'll take this burning issue and your policy recommendation that we can feed into some of the policy recommendations that have been captured. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the organizers as well for us to come here. I have a few issues that I thought we should think about. My name is Lucy Furamera. I'm coming from Zimbabwe. I am a professional. I'm not elected into local government. When I was coming here, I was told it's for elected women leaders in local authorities, mayors, councillors, etc. My question is, Rafaela is doing a wonderful job. And you are talking about going to schools, to colleges, and so on. But perhaps I would like to observe that sometimes you don't have to be a woman to be sensitive to women's issues. I agree with the previous speaker who talked about mental liberation. You may be educated, but if you do not know, you know, the most difficult person to liberate is someone who does not know that they are oppressed. I think that's our problem. We need a mind shift in terms of the women ourselves. Perhaps what I was also thinking is that now that we are talking about elected women, is Rafaela also thinking of sponsoring or proposing administrators, women administrators in local government? I know we have different local government setups in Africa. In Southern Africa, for instance, our elected mayors and councillors are not executive. In other words, they are employed elsewhere, they are doing their jobs elsewhere, and we have professionals who are running municipalities. These are the people who organize. We have been talking about this place being half empty. Why? Who has been organizing the programs around? I'm talking about the associations. This thing is organized by Africities in Africa, which is the associations of local authorities. How are these associations structured? Do we have women senior enough in the offices to influence even the planning of the workshop or the conference? And when we meet, of course, I'm not so sure, it's my first time. I thought we needed statistics, for instance. We want to know how countries are doing. For instance, in Zimbabwe, we have a gender focal person for every local authority. And the business of that gender focal person is to give the association statistics of what we are doing, where we have been, where we are, and where we are going. I thought this is something that we need to share. And perhaps lastly, is Rafela thinking of organizing a women alone? I'm not saying men are not supporting us, but this has been a big thing about Africities. Do we have anything that you organize specifically for women to come and share best practices and then perhaps sponsor some resolutions into the UCLGA or UCLG so that our issues are taken seriously, not just as an appendage of an ongoing workshop, which I seem to say I'm not so sure, but all the same I am happy with what you are doing, but we want to know. Southern Africa, Africa is continent, the associations themselves, how are they structured? Who are the secretary generals? Who are the administrators? Are women influence the actual work, the practical work in the local authorities? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those very important issues. I would just like to share that we were looking at the program for this activity and wondering how many topics are talking about women or bringing women together, and we only had this one, and unfortunately not a very well attended session. So that's something that we need to think about, and I think she brought it out clearly. So do you want to, very, very briefly?
Thank you. It may be something that has been said before, but we are coming for the first time. We'll apologize if it has been decided. I think my proposal for policy is that each country must have a women's budget. Every country to have a women's budget. I think how it's going to be used is up to, we'll have to translate what we want later. And then when we were, there was another event, and an African Union thing, which was in Senton, where Tanzanian women were saying they don't have access to banks. And I think it's proper that we should be repeating that countries must ensure that there's transformation of the banking system that is controlled by patriarchy, so that they can be transformed for access of loans to women, because women don't have access to banks. I think it's not only in South Africa, not only in Tanzania, I think it's also in other countries. Then this other one is just passing. I think we must get reports of what is being done. Like I said earlier, it must be a policy that when we get to events of this nature, we must get a report of what has been done so that we can be able to measure if there's progress or there's regression.
What we've done with regards to goal 11, 5 and 11.
Is it possible that we can, no, it may not be only in local government, but it can fit wherever it fits. Yeah. I think we need to have a model for mobilizing women, because we can't just be saying mobilize women and there is no theoretic base, and it must refer to urban and also rural. Just a model, so people can modify it to fit their situations, but there must be a proper way of addressing this this challenge. The other point is that we've got women that are in writing. Why don't we have an Africa Women magazine or a paper? We can start at regional level to have a SADC paper, for example. And then we can now graduate, then we get a continental paper. We were in an event, I don't know what was happening yesterday, after 5 p.m., but all the same there was a committee elected. I think we need to clearly find out what's happening, because even if we are not elected women, I'm from an NGO, we need to find out what's happening. For example, if people have been elected, where is the report on what they've done since they were elected? Where is the constitution? And how do we transform the very structure? Because for a structure to be only having mayors, I've got a question mark in that. Because we cannot have a mayor without the civil society. We may not interfere in the function of mayors, but parallel to the mayors, there must be a civil society structure that is dissecting our experience as communities and feed it to that structure if we cannot do it together. We don't want to force ourselves to elected people. So, Chair, I think I'm ending there. Advocacy on women maybe can be a topic on its own. She talked about local radios and the rest, but it can also be, yeah. We may not, even Facebook, I use WhatsApp in my local area. WhatsApp is helping. Some women feel that they're no more lonely. You open up WhatsApp groups, you put a topic to say, let's have an objective for this group, and we revolve around it. And people feel free now that at least they've got somebody to talk to.
Thank you very much for those very important issues. So we'll have one last comment from here, then our responses and the policy recommendation.
For women mobilization. That is what she's okay. I'm going to put that here. So theorize.
Sorry, please.
A model. Theorize. A model.
Oh, there were no hands on that side. How many hands do we have on that side?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Moi, je m'appelle Lal Mtsida Lamine. Je suis mauritanienne. Je suis membre du réseau des femmes élus locales en Mauritanie. Mais je vais parler en arabe parce que je suis arabisante. Je vais parler en arabe. Mais Madame la maire, elle va me traduire ce que je veux dire. أنا أرى أن القارة الإفريقية التي تعتبر قارتنا والتي توصف دائما بأنها القارة الفقيرة إنها ليست كذلك. إنها قارة غنية بمواردها الطبيعية وغنية بمواردها البشرية، ولكن ما ينقص هذه القارة وما يؤدي إلى أن نلاحظ أن هذه القارة لم تحقق تنمية وهو إقصاء المرأة. المرأة التي تمثل أكثر من 50% من السكان تعتبر مقصية. السبب، هناك أسباب رئيسية في هذا الإقصاء، هو الجهل والفقر والإقصاء الاجتماعي. إذن هذه المسائل الثلاثة هي التي أدت إلى أن تكون إفريقيا، بالنسبة لي أرى أن التنمية في إفريقيا لم تنجح نتيجة لإقصاء 50% من السكان. أرى أن الحل في هذا، وهذا باختصار، يكمن في ماذا؟ في التعليم، تعليم المرأة، ولوج المرأة للمناصب السياسية عن طريق الانتخابات، ودعم المرأة لأختها الأخوات النساء إذا كانت هناك انتخابات في إطار العمل السياسي الجماعي في إطار دولهم. تأهيل المرأة وتمكينها من ولوج المناصب القرار. وإن ما دمنا ما حققنا هذه المكاسب لا نرى أن هنالك تنمية، وأن التنمية تبدأ أولا بالتنمية المحلية اللي هي التنمية التي تتم عن طريق البلديات والجماعات المحلية في المجتمعات الريفية والحضرية، ثم بعد ذلك نحقق التنمية الشاملة والتنمية الاقتصادية بالمفهوم العام الذي تطمح إليه المؤتمرات الدولية والأهداف الدولية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا. We're running out of time.
On va traduire. On va traduire.
Okay.
Translate.
Okay.
Alors, notre sœur Lala, c'est bon? Le micro est bon? Ok? Alors, Lala a dit que on a tendance à qualifier le micro, please.
Can I go on?
Microphone. Give it to me. Alors, on a tendance à qualifier le continent africain comme un continent pauvre. Pour elle, ce n'est pas le cas. Le continent africain est un continent riche de par sa diversité, de par ses ressources humaines. Mais ce qui manque, c'est que on a discriminé la femme. C'est ça qui a fait que le continent est pauvre. Elle propose que pour surseoir à cette discrimination qui a rendu la femme analphabète pauvre, il faut un système éducatif adéquat, il faut permettre à la femme d'accéder aux postes électifs, il faut l'appuyer à être autonome. Voilà, merci.
minutes here, so we'll have very brief, and then we have our policy recommendations. Apologies for those who have more questions.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Nongaba Mulwele from South Africa in the city of Johannesburg. Mine is, as we are moving towards the recommendations, what is going to happen about these recommendations? We have been in so many platforms where good ideas are coming and good recommendations are coming, but at the end of the day, it ends there. And when we go to another summit or conference, we start from the beginning. We don't even look at what has happened to the recommendations that women have made. So for me, is that we have to learn from country to country the best practice and make recommendations for African women and make sure that those recommendations are implemented for the benefit of African women. We must have one Africa, one women. Thank you.
Thank you. This is okay. Very brief.
Thank you. My name is Sequoia from the city of Joburg. I've got a bit of a concern that we have structures, we have a women's structure that has been serving for the past years, and that we don't have the report where we are sitting. Because I think we cannot reinvent the wheel. We should know where were the shortcuts, what was their mandate and their recommendations, how far have they gone, and the incoming leadership, we should know, and enhance where there were shortcomings and gaps within the previous leadership. But I think also having a structure that doesn't have a budget is a problem. Because I think those structures, women's structures, should be budgeted for so that they could have some researchers within their offices. They must have human resource capital, they must have the budget to do works. You should have exchange programs, but how will they do that if there's no budget? I think it's something that we need to make sure that when we get to the declarations and commitments from this summit, those are included in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's have some responses. Do we have some responses?
Alors, on va commencer par répondre à différentes questions sur la structure. Il faut d'abord dissocier deux choses. Ici, c'est une session qui est organisée par la commission OERO. La commission OERO, je ne sais pas s'ils l'ont déjà définie avant mon arrivée. C'est une commission qui a un statut d'observateur au niveau de l'ECOSOC. Et c'est une commission qui mobilise pas mal de femmes au niveau mondial, mais elle a un caractère société civile. Donc c'est différent de l'autre organisation que vous sous-entendez ici, qui est le REFELA et qui est le réseau des femmes élus locales d'Afrique, qui est en fait une structure, enfin une instance qui représente la commission des femmes des cités gouvernements locaux unis, CGLIA. Donc c'est différent. Alors, cette session, elle est organisée par OERO et nous sommes conviés à contribuer avec nos sœurs. Maintenant, pour nous autres, en tant qu'élus locaux, pour les réseaux, je pense, mes sœurs, que votre préoccupation va être levée demain, parce que c'est demain où nous avons l'Assemblée générale. C'est demain où le rapport va être exposé. C'est demain où vous aurez la vidéo sur les réalisations. C'est demain où les différentes présidentes, les vice-présidentes vont faire leur speech sur la situation par région. Donc ce n'est pas ici. Ce qu'on a fait hier comme élection, c'est une façon de déblayer un peu ce qui va être formalisé demain par l'Assemblée générale. C'est pour faciliter la tâche. OK. Donc ce qu'on a fait hier, c'est juste un travail en amont qui va être formalisé demain par l'Assemblée générale, à laquelle vous êtes conviés si vous êtes élu local. Si vous êtes élu local. OK. Demain, donc, on va parler du réseau. Donc, il y a deux sessions, pas une, il y a deux sessions qui sont dédiées aux femmes. Il y a cette session qui est organisée par la société civile et il y a une session demain qui est organisée par les élus locaux, le REFELA, dans laquelle on va exposer ce que c'est le REFELA, le mandat, nos réalisations, notre bilan, mais on va aussi donner l'occasion à d'autres de parler, d'autres partenaires comme l'Union africaine, comme ONIFEM, de parler avec nous et on va un peu voir certains axes qui nous intéressent en tant que femmes élues locales. OK? Maintenant, je vais revenir un peu sur une question qui a été soulevée par ma sœur d'Afrique du Sud tout à l'heure. Hier, on a parlé, elle a dit qu'elle n'a pas compris l'année l'année 2015 a été retenue par l'Union africaine comme étant l'année de l'autonomisation de la femme. Est retenue par l'Union africaine comme étant l'année de l'autonomisation de la femme. Ok. Maintenant, je ne sais pas à quel pourcentage cette autonomisation a été réalisée. Ça, on va le voir avec les concernés. Alors, les financements. Ma sœur qui travaille pour les collectivités locales. Moi, je pense que le RFLA, il ne faut pas le voir comme étant une institution de financement. Ce n'est pas un bailleur de fonds. C'est une structure, c'est une instance élective entre les femmes élues locales qui émane des cités gouvernements locaux unis, CGLIA, et qui a pour objectif ultime d'assurer une meilleure représentativité des femmes dans toutes les sphères de décision. Ça, c'est l'objectif ultime. Bien sûr, on a un autre objectif de développer le leadership féminin, de renforcer les capacités des femmes, etc. Et pour cela, nous sommes appelés en tant que femmes leaders à mobiliser justement les partenaires avec nous, à nous accompagner en termes de moyens pour réaliser toutes nos ambitions. Ok, c'est clair. Alors, maintenant, qu'est-ce qui décide à Africités, etc. Africités, pour vous donner un peu une idée, Africités, c'est un sommet qui regroupe d'abord les élus locaux, donc de toute l'Afrique, mais aussi des universitaires, des chercheurs, de la société civile, mais des gouvernements nationaux. Donc tous les gouvernements qui ont en charge la décentralisation sont partie prenante dans Africités. Donc c'est un peu cette mixité-là d'acteurs qui est portée un peu par les piliers qui est les élus locaux que nous sommes. Et on a mis, je crois, le thème cette année, c'est construire l'Afrique à partir de ses territoires, je pense. Ok. Alors maintenant, je pense que chaque pays, c'est la diversité, hein, et c'est ça qui fait notre richesse aussi. Chaque pays a certainement ses statistiques, ses budgets, mais je sais qu'il n'y a pas un pays en Afrique où il n'y a pas un département en charge de la problématique des femmes. Ça n'existe pas. Donc dans tous nos pays, il y a une structure, un département ministériel qui prend en charge la problématique des femmes. Maintenant, c'est à différents degrés maintenant, parce que l'engagement, la volonté politique, on en a parlé tout à l'heure, mais à elle seule, ce n'est pas suffisant. Il faut aussi, comme a dit certains d'entre nous, notre engagement à nous en tant que femmes, notre prise de conscience à nous. Il faut qu'elle s'ajoute à cela pour qu'on puisse avancer. Je pense que le CGLIA dispose d'une base de données importante sur les différents pays, sur les statistiques, sur tous ces aspects-là. Les budgets sensibles au genre, je pense que c'est une approche qui est de plus en plus adoptée au niveau des pays. Nous, en tout cas, au niveau du RFLA, nous avions déjà organisé plusieurs sessions de formation sur les budgets sensibles aux gens. Je sais que le RFLA Mauritanie vient de finir sa formation à peine 2 semaines. Donc, le budget sensible au genre est très important. Les femmes modèles, vous savez, les femmes modèles, ça va varier d'un pays à un autre. Mais je suis d'accord avec vous qu'il faut nécessairement connaître un modèle. Et c'est ça, d'ailleurs, le RFLA, dans le cadre de sa nouvelle vision qu'on va adopter demain aussi, il prévoit pour intéresser un peu les femmes, les filles surtout, à s'accrocher, les autres femmes à s'accrocher au RFLA et au poste électif. On va cibler des femmes modèles par pays pour justement faire ce plaidoyer-là, partir en caravane par exemple pour faire ce travail. Voilà, le compte rendu, on va le faire demain. Structure de maire, donc je pense que le RFLA, c'est clair, le RFLA c'est pour les élus locaux. Donc c'est une plateforme qui ne concerne que les élus locaux. Elle ne concerne pas la société civile, ni les médecins, ni les chercheurs, même si on peut être médecin et élu local, les chercheurs et élus locaux. Ok, et je vous dis tout de suite aussi, je suis fière de le dire, c'est un motif de fierté pour nous. C'est la seule plateforme qui marche en Afrique et de par le monde, élus local, et de par le monde d'ailleurs. C'est grâce à nous qu'on a ouvert la porte grandement à d'autres femmes en Europe, notamment la maire de Paris. C'est grâce au combat des femmes africaines, des femmes élues locales d'Afrique qu'elle a eu accès à ce qu'elle est aujourd'hui. Elle le reconnaît, elle ne rate aucune occasion pour le souligner. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mayor Fatimatou. That was a very good response. Now we'll have to go to the policy recommendations that have been captured from this recommendation from Helen, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam, and good day. Okay, taking into consideration, I think we heard a lot of information from the collaborations to encourage self-awareness, enhance non-violence messages. I've had to take everything that we've heard to put it into some kind of policy. We've heard about local government, we've heard about the education of women and patriarchy. So I've started with the one recommendation, and that is for equal, informed and effective participation of women in local government planning and budgetary decisions. And that would take into quite a lot of the information. It would also include, for instance, that women at grassroots and marginalized social groups focus on the planning evaluation of gender impacts on policies. So that would be the first policy recommendation. The second one, one would look at to increase local government accountability and gender responsiveness, to support innovation through new tools for knowledge and information transfer. And when you look at that, you're looking at how you collect, analyze, and disseminate geographically based gender disregarded data. That was some of the areas that was discussed here. And one would also look at utilizing not only quantitative, but also qualitative indicators for monitoring change with respect to women's interests and needs. And then increase research using gendered research tools. So that would fall under the innovation through new tools of knowledge and information transfer. We would, under that, one would also look at, we could showcase studies of innovative practices with regards to gender and use them in our trainings. And at regional level, establish regional platforms for the exchange of lessons learned from innovative practices, especially in implementing the engendered participatory budget. One of the very important aspects, and I think looking at KZN, which is a model, to increase social cohesion and equity in terms of rights to city. I think we heard how KZN had made use of some of their innovation with regards to their green spaces. Under this area, we would also reconfirm all international responsibilities of member states in terms of the right to city. Exchange existing laws to meet the needs of different groups in terms of safety, security, and universal accessibility. In design of public spaces, ensure the universal accessibility to safe public spaces, which can accommodate the needs of women economically, socially, and politically. Ensure that women are participating in design, development, and maintenance of public spaces. Provide secure, regular, and cost-effective transportation to improve urban and rural linkages. I think that was very important. Secure rights to public lands. We heard that where land is not being used, how one can utilize that. One of the other areas that came up when we summarized is to engender the urban economy. So one would create opportunities and provide resources to support women's business development and employment, including safe and affordable transportation, flexible support services, access to technologies. I think one of the areas that was important was the supportive conditions for a care economy and caregiving roles through development and adaptation of a care economy. Those were the areas that we looked at there. And then, of course, we came down to address ecology and the environment. I think that's very important. We're looking at climate change. We heard from our speakers, one of the main things that there are women that were, one woman is at home using wood for fire, but at the same time we have challenges in climate. But there are other areas that one can look at. So we would support, resource, and provide spaces for local community resilience, knowledge creation, and adaptation initiatives of women's groups. I think that would be important. Then at the same time, the last speakers that came, there was some very important thing, and that would be theorize a model for women mobilization. Very important. And then lastly is clarify the role of civil society in women's structures. If these were the areas that I captured and tried to summarize, one would then add, would move down and actually populate those actual policy statements. But if there's anything that you think that should be here, please kindly come and see me. Thank you. But those are the main themes. They talk to they basically talk to the gender responsive urban development framework, and that is where we need to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Helen, for capturing those important policy recommendations. I think she did a good job, and in case you feel that anything is missing, please get in touch with her before we compile the final recommendation to forward to the organizers. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the speakers of this session, Madam Cookie Edwards and Mayor Fatimetu. Thank you very much for sparing your time and preparing everything to make this a successful session and sharing with us your practices and your experiences in an effort to engender the urban agenda and ensure that women are empowered and there's gender equity in the process of governance in cities. I would also like to thank our two rapporteurs that worked together to capture all the issues that came through this process. And finally, I would like to thank everyone that came to this session. We really appreciate your time, your information, sharing your experiences, your questions. Thank you very much for coming over. Thank you especially to the men who are in this room. Thank you very much for coming over, and we hope that moving forward that we'll have more men come to share with us, because we cannot continue talking to ourselves and not involve men in this process. So thank you very much. And with that, I would like to close this session on gendering the urban agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.